Hello, and please feel welcome to talk about men. This episode is about a nasty BDSM guy. I'd known Paul from our early 20s. He seemed quite a friendly, cuddly guy with slightly wavy hair. He would be okay in groups. One time a few years later, we were sat alone and he was nasty and dismissive about something I'd written. We got back in touch years later, and again he would be dismissive about things I'd written. We discovered we were both into BDSM and started to arrange a scene. We wrote lots of questionnaires, filled in what we fancied doing and so on. I went up to his with plenty of condoms. He refused to use them. I should have left at that point, but I was fired up with all the build-up and also wasn't at home. I was several hours away. He would be dismissive about me as a bisexual, even implying that viewing LGBT programmes and so on was somehow wrong or crap. He smoked a lot of weed, and because of my health, I'm not allowed to be around that really. I also hate stoners. I think it's disgusting. I know for a fact from doctors how bad it is for everyone's mental health. No doctor would say it's good for anyone, they'd be struck off. I was surprised to find that although he had looked okay when we were younger, well, not attractive but not like hideous, he looked an utter shambles. Mostly it was his hair that he wore in an absolutely ridiculous style that no one could have avoided looking at wherever he went and thought looked ludicrous. He also dressed scruffily and was obese. He was a narcissist or a wannabe narcissist. He said that with his previous girlfriend, if they went in a club or wherever, people would say, "Oh, look, she's with him!" And he said, "Because I am known there." But later he said that because his girlfriend ran the club, it would take them ages to leave the building because everyone wanted to say hello to her. This was the real events, whereas everyone gasping about him was his fantasy. This BDSM relationship made me ill because it's not a real relationship and I didn't know where I stood and how much this was, something I could rely on. He would pay me hardly any compliments, which was strange compared to my last partner who paid me many compliments on my body. I'm not saying I'm wildly attractive, I just thought that's how a partner should behave, and to me it's nicer. I think any woman would find it nicer. He had a very bad temper. I would be crying down the phone to my mum on the way there, saying how much I didn't like his temper. He said that he didn't care about various health problems I had or people that had them. I emailed him in reply to that. As with all the other insults and dismissiveness, I didn't pull him up on it when I should have done. So I emailed him in reply, and he didn't reply to me. And then he would say, "I think you're pissed off that I didn't reply to your email," when I'd said nothing, so he was trying to generate a row and stir. Towards the end, he started spanking me, and I used my safe word. In BDSM, if someone uses the safe word, everything's supposed to stop because they no longer consent to being hit. After that, they're being physically abused and sexually abused. But he said, "I'm not going to let you get away with that," and carried on. Even if you're a sub in a relationship, you're also a human with needs, and those need to be recognised. One time I'd come to visit him in heels, but I found it incredibly difficult to walk to his house. I stopped on a wall and said, "Oh, Paul, please could you fetch me some flat shoes from that corner shop on the corner?" It was just a few metres away. He looked at me as if I had asked for something utterly ridiculous, because he was the dom and I was the sub. But we were supposed friends, and the supposed friend would help someone in pain that was their friend, and we weren't in the scene at the time. Even if we were, then my pain would obviously have come first, an unpleasant pain to me. If I had a friend or lover in pain, I'd help them out. So he gave me a black look and refused without saying anything. It was February and freezing cold up north. I had to walk in bare feet to the corner shop by myself without him helping me. Another time I asked him for something I needed. He said, "This is a fundamental misunderstanding of our relationship," and dumped me. You are allowed needs as a sub, otherwise that's just not right. You're a human. After we split, he became verbally and emotionally abusive, calling me names. He would use insecurities that I'd mentioned to him in the past as ammunition to get at me. He would twist anything nice I did to be somehow wrong. The verbal and emotional abuse was why I found it so hard to get over this relationship, even though it had been short. When we were chatting at first, he happened to bring up how feminists online would claim that people were gaslighting them, and I agreed that this was hyperbole. Later, after we split up, he would flirt with me in the morning, and in the evening, if I responded in kind later in the day, he would claim I was barking mad. When, it was in text, it was a fact that he'd been flirting with me earlier in the day. So I said, and others independently have called it this, that he was gaslighting me because he was pretending that hadn't been what he was doing earlier in the day. And then he said, we've discussed gaslighting and that it's nonsense or something like that. And that's made me think that in future I'd be really careful about criticising other feminists too. A bloke, if he was critical of feminism, I would take that as a bad sign in some ways. It's fine to discuss feminism with friends and so on, but you should see that as a slight red flag and maybe not join in with it. Don't agree with them, say nothing or whatever. Keep it as part of what you're keeping an eye on in their behaviour. So yes, even while we were going out, he didn't respond to one email, which is passive aggressive, which he accused me of doing, but that is exactly what he was doing. I wasn't passive aggressive at any point. I would send him friendly comments and he would see this as somehow passive aggressive. So yeah, then he didn't reply to me for months until he messaged me Happy Christmas. I was really angry, and I should have said to him, look, you can't drop people and then pick them up again, you know that. But instead I just sort of went off on one, really. All this is hopefully I will learn as time goes on, now that I need to confront people in writing rather than in person if I need to. So yeah, BDSM relationships. I suppose they can work for some people. Make sure, maybe discuss in writing. Discuss, as always, condom use in advance before you meet anyone, so that you know where you stand. He was also weird about the sex. We were strangely sexually incompatible. And I said, oh, sorry, I'm a bit rusty at sex, because I'm always self-deprecating. I will always assume or say it's me. And he says, yeah, you could call it rusty, couldn't you, or something like that. But it was equally him. He had an average sized penis, and because of his morbid obesity, it meant that there was very little working length because his belly got in the way of like him performing sex. It was also very hard to do some positions, like woman on top. There was no way you could go up and down because your legs were trying to stretch across his body and haven't got anywhere to go after that. But anyway, yeah, BDSM, maybe it works for some people, but make sure they recognise you're a human and agree that you have needs and you can ask for things that you need and be treated with respect and basic compassion. And as always, if there's any name calling or verbal abuse at any point, either during the relationship or after, cut all contact. Thank you for listening to me talk about men. The book that the girls are reading is The Shark Cage. I'll post a link in the description. Please like, share and subscribe. If you have a story to tell, you can email on the address below.